Hey guys, Ken here. I wanted to do a quick kind of run through. Now, most of you probably already understand how to do this, but um, just because I want to make sure that everybody does understand the process of how to get this document going. And this is for starting your design manual. All right, now this is down and dirty. I honestly, I'm not using an external microphone. I'm using everything from the laptop. Normally, I would spend more time trying to get it correct, but for now, I just wanted to get something recorded so that you would be able to have something to work with. Okay, so I've got InDesign open, and I'm going to do a new document. Well, new document. Now, some of the things that I want you to start off with is to understand that because we're not going to be doing actual booklet, normally I would have had you do something that you printed out. In this situation, uh, I'm going to save it as a PDF. I'm going to export it as a PDF. First thing I want is I want normal size pages just in case somebody does decide to print it. Now, if you have to, you might want to go up into this window right here and select print, do 8.5 letter. And orientation obviously would be portrait. We're going to untick facing pages. And the gutter column width, we're going to leave that the same. And on the margins, I'm going to put, honestly, I think a half an inch is safe. Now, when we're doing something online, we don't really have to be too concerned about it because people can scroll left or right, and it's not that big of a deal. If we were doing print, you would probably want 1 inch margins on the left and the right, and possibly the top and bottom. But for the most part, the top is not nearly as important. The the margin in between, if we were printing page side by side pages, we would want a 1 inch margin down the center of the pages, if that makes sense. When you open up the booklet, you would have a space on each side of it. And that there's a thing called creep when you're printing, because the pages have a certain width. After a certain amount of pages, it's no longer the same because one page slips into another page, slips into another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And eventually, that first page that you put in is being spread out, so it doesn't go quite as far. And you've probably noticed this if you take a stack of papers and you fold them in half. The first page or the first piece of paper is shorter on the end. And we have to account for that when it comes to design. Now, like I said, we are doing a PDF, so we don't have to be too concerned about that. But be aware that if you were doing a booklet, that this would be very important to make sure that you have at least a 1 inch margin on those. Okay? All right, so I'm going to hit create. And we've got the standard layout. Okay? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show the pages. Now, we've got the master and none. What I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out anything special to do with the master pages. I'm going to create extra ones if that's what I need. Pretty much, I'm going to leave this alone right now. Now, you guys might have a set parameter that you're going, maybe you're going to want 2 text boxes. And in the master pages, that's how I would do that. For this demonstration, I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to do master pages. They're not difficult. Basically, it's a template that you create. And when you want to use that template, you would click on the master page and bring it down. Okay? Now, I did just realize that there is something that I need to take into consideration, and that's the footer, the running foot. So I am going to go up into the A master. Now, double click, make sure that that's blue, because it's very easy to think you're on the master page and be actually on a page of the document. So I've double clicked on that. And now I'm going to create my running foot. First of all, I'm going to do a text box, and I'm going to do it all the way across because I'm going to use centering. And I'm going to put design manual. I'm going to hit tab. I'm going to do page and hit a space, and I'm going to go up to my menu bar, and I'm going to put special character, markers, current page number, and then I'm going to hit tab again, and I'm going to put the keeping room. Now, in order to see what I'm actually doing, there's two things I'm going to do. The first is I'm going to zoom in so I actually have a decent view of it. Maybe even spread this out a little bit. I'm also now going to show hidden characters. I'm going to go to type, show hidden characters. Make sure that I did put the tab in. Now, I'm assuming that you can see this, but I'll zoom in a little bit. The double greater than symbols equals a tab in InDesign. All right, so now I'm going to zoom out so I can see the whole page. And I'm going to tell InDesign where I want these tabs. All right, so I'm going to select the text, and then I'm going to hit Shift, Command, T. I think the first thing I'm going to do, just to make it easier on myself, I'm going to put a tab before Design Manual. This allows me to decide where I want the text to start. So I put my cursor before the D, and now I can say, all right, my first tab is going to be on that margin. My last tab is going to be over here, and then if we look, we have 7.5, so 3.5, it's 3 3/4. So I'm going to click, this should be the center if I'm correct. Now, because I want the page number to be centered, I'm going to select the, I want a centered tab. Okay, so that tab is selected. I'm going to click here. Now, I want the far right hand tab that I put in to be aligned on the right. Okay, so I do that. So now that I have the text ends at the margin and begins at the margin, and if I did my math correctly, the page number is centered right in there. Okay, so now I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to resize this a little bit, kind of get it out of the way. Because we are working with online stuff, which is a PDF, I'm going to drop this down below my bottom margin. Okay? Now I need to decide what the text is going to be. Okay? I'm going to go into Window, Type and Tables. No, let's go to Styles and go to Character Styles. Now, if you remember this, the first thing we need to do is do a new. I'm going to double click on it. It's going to open up a dialog box, and I'm going to call this the footer. Basic character. I'm a fan of Courier, DinPro. There's a lot of them. If you're not sure what to use, just don't go over the top. Don't pick something that's really crazy. Just stick with something traditional. If you want, there's Caslon, there's Helvetica, even Arial. Most people don't like Arial, but if you like something simple, Arial's a good one. So I'm going to go with something that's a little bit out there, but I kind of like. I'm going to go with American Typewriter. And because it's a running foot, I don't want it to demand a lot of attention. Basically, what I want is I want it to be small. Okay? I'm also going to maybe put it at about 10, and I made it light. Now, this could be too much. I can always come back and change it. I'm going to do character color. and I'm going to choose registration, and I'm going to lower it down to probably 80%, maybe 70%. Again, I don't want it to take up a lot of attention. So it just needs to be there when somebody needs to know what page they're on, they can look. It's not something that everyone's going to look at all the time. Okay, for now, I think that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to check this to make sure that it looks the way I want it to look. Okay, I am going to change the keeping room here, and I'm going to make it italic. And there's a possibility that you may not have italic over here. Okay, there's something this I did not talk about this in Intro to Graphic Design, but what you can do is you can tilt it. Basically, you make your own italics, and this typically isn't a good idea for a lot of things, but for just this running foot, I'm assuming that it's going to be okay. It may not be, and I might have to change it, but for now, I think I'm going to try it. Up here, you will notice that we have a kind of a slanted T, and I'm just going to click it. Usually about 16 degrees is where you want it to be. You may, if you go 16 on some typefaces, it may be too much, so you might want to back it down. There's no absolute to this. There's just kind of a starting point. All right, so I'm going to, here we have Design Manual, page 1, the keeping room. All right, I'm going to zoom out. Okay, I think that's going to work for the footer. Okay, now every time that I want to put text in, I'm going to have to create a different style. So I'm going to create a new style for the body text. I'm going to call this body. Character style formats, basic character formats, I'm going to choose DIN Pro. You can choose whatever you want. Make sure that you don't go over the top though. I'm going to do regular. I'm going to do the size of about 11. Kerning and everything I'm going to leave the same. Same with leading. Typically, the leading works on the defaults, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best option. I'm also going to lighten the color a little bit because I do not want the contrast of black and white. So I'm going to choose registration, and I'm going to back it down to 80% as well. I'm going to hit OK. And now the thing to do is to start kind of doing stuff. All right. Start putting information in. I'm going to leave this open. Now I'm putting it up on another screen. You can't see that, and I'll go back to pages, and I'll go here, and I've got my running foot. And the reason why it's a running foot is because it changes with every page. Okay. In a lot of situations, you maybe don't want something to change. Maybe you're just putting design manual on all the pages. Then it's just a footer. Okay, it's a running foot when you have this information. Okay, so we're getting to the point where I think everybody else should be able to move forward. These are the things that I was kind of worried about, that you weren't going to go with consistency. It's so easy just to start, and that is kind of the way that I usually do it, but I don't make any adjustments. I don't change the typeface, I don't change the size, I don't really modify anything until I make character styles. Just to show you what I mean, maybe our first title might be something, the logo. Then I'm going to put another box in here, and I am going to type the keeping room's logo is created to be displayed on all business identity identity. I'm too far away to actually see what I'm writing. Items. Okay, so and I would go on and on and on. Now you can see that it's all DIN Pro. What I can do next is then go in, create a new style. Okay, I'll bring this box back down, and for the titles, I'm going to do new, character style, double click on it. Based on body, I'm going to call this the titles. And I'm going to leave everything the same, except I'm going to make it bold. And I'm going to change the size. I'm going to bump it up to, say, I don't know. This is completely up to you. These are aesthetic choices. I'll change it to 24. I'll hit OK. And now I will select the logo here and change it to titles. Now, anytime, like say okay, so now in order to duplicate this information here, I could change this over into the master pages, and it might be the best way to go. It just depends. Sometimes I do it in master pages, sometimes not. So if you don't want to use master pages to put this information in, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to page 2, Shift, I think it's Shift, Option, Command, V. And now what I've done is I've duplicated it. It's called Paste in Place. You can also go Edit, Paste in Place. And instead of the logo, I'm going to change it to the palette colors. And I will change this information here. The logo is best, and anything. You would put that information in. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you. This is the best way to start. Remember that this booklet or this PDF is just as important as your logo. So make sure that you're spending the time to design it properly. When I talk about design, it could be, say, say you want some graphics in there. I'm going to choose a rectangle tool, and maybe I'll do something like this. Change the color to a light red. I'm going to kind of break it all the way down so it's barely, say, 23%. And I hit cancel on that, and I'll come in, resize it to the border here, and I could put my titles underneath that. Object, arrange, send to back, maybe adjust this a little bit. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can do. Would do something like that. However you decide to design it, just make sure that it's designed, okay? All right, so I'm going to end this here. Like I said, it's down and dirty. Hopefully the audio comes out. Hopefully you can see everything. If you have any questions, make sure that you contact me. And I guess that's it. Thanks, guys.